One thing that I have found to be true in parenting and in homeschooling is that you have to do what works for you. Trying to be that square peg fitting into like that round hole, like it's hard. It's better to be like that round peg for the round hole, or be the square peg and find your square hole. It might feel easier to try and change to fit in, but in that, just perhaps you're giving up something that can bring you like joy, a sense of completeness. You need to find your sized and shaped hole, and you have to do what works for you. Hi, and welcome to Learning Life, and thank you so much for joining me as I unpack what has really become like my catchphrase, do what works for you. My girls roll my eyes because I say it so often, but it is something that I really hold true to my heart. And as you know, I speak with people, do what works for you. Maybe you have watched some of my videos and you've heard me say that. And so if you have, I thank you so much for watching. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for your likes and your subscribes, for your comments, and just being part of this learning life. Sometimes it's obvious that you're going to do things differently. I'm Australian. My husband is German. We live in America. Our girls are all 3 nationalities and citizenship. So you know what? There's that. We might do things, it might be obvious that we might do things differently. But we have had some funny experiences with that. And you know what? Maybe it's not so obvious that you're going to do things differently. Like, why would I, a trained teacher who's been in the classrooms and all of that, choose to homeschool? Shock, almost horror. But we do what works for us, our little Amaduralian family. So when it comes to homeschool, what do you do? Whether it's school at home or Montessori or a mix of different things, you have to do what works for you for homeschool to be successful and happy. Because here's the thing. Families all across the board are discovering we don't need to be this school-fixated society anymore. And by that, I mean that our children's lives are defined by going to school, a brick and mortar school, going to school, because that is the place that they get their education. That is the place they get their socialization. That is the place that they get to learn how to be functioning adults who go off and work. We're moving away from that and seeing that that's not the be-all and the end-all in raising these beautiful functioning adults. And there are so many different ways to homeschool. If we just go by the main labels, the main categories, there are 10. But what if you take bits and pieces of different styles and mix it and do this over here and do that there? Really make it your own. If we look at that, then really, how many different types of homeschooling are there? The main thing to note is there is not one way to homeschool, and there is not one right way to homeschool. You do what works for you. When we started out, it was more school at home style with, strong touch of my flair because I like to teach differently. But I knew school. And so it was going to be more school at home. But within 3 weeks, I noticed we really needed to make a change, and I wrestled with that. While I, don't always like doing something just because that's the way we've always done it, it's challenge accepted, I actually struggle with change. But we did a 180 and went from school at home to unschooling, and we flourished. So how did we make this shift, and how can you do what works for you? Well, here are 5 key principles that I keep covering time and time again, with different people who reach out and want help. And this is really what you need to know in order to make it to work best for you. Know yourself. You. I think it's important to know ourselves and how we operate. And I'm not saying that you need to go and do this big personality test, find out your Enneagram, all this, that, and the other, though I personally love knowing these things about me. But I am saying we need to know, what are our triggers? What helps us feel in control? What are some of our absolutes? Do you need routine and structure? Can you handle a mess, or does your house really need to be clean and calm? Like, what about noise? Like, what do you need to do to be energized again? Like, what time do you need for that? Look, in knowing who I am and what I need, I've also been able to meet my girls where they are at and still be me. Sometimes I feel a little lost, but I can come back and like, no, this is healthy. This is where I am. Now, did I do more compromising than I thought was possible for me? Yes, I did. But ultimately, I am happier and my girls are too. Know your children. What are their personalities like? Like more kids we have, the more different personalities we have. Like, do you know their learning styles? I love the learning styles. I love knowing how any child that I have worked with learns. Like, so much so that, I talk about the learning styles often. Like, check out like this video up here. And I've got more down below. Like, I'll link those because this is such a great way to really know like the learning styles. And their learning issues, like their triggers. When we know our children and how they're learning, we can tweak it and make it work like for them, for all of us. And it's so powerful when we can learn together in a way like that brings harmony to our house. Does it mean compromise from us and them? Yes. Does it mean like, oh, maybe you have to like homeschool slightly differently for each child? Also, yes, I have too. And I've got twins, but different personalities, different learning styles. Same lesson in two different ways. And look, my mother sent my brothers and I like to different high schools because it was like the best thing for us all. And that really is a great example of do what works for you. Be willing to not do the norm. So the definition of the norm, something that's usual or typical or standard, and it can feel weird. Let's just say it's weird to be doing something that feels like, oh, but they're not doing it and they're not doing it, like no one else is doing it. This is also true of parenting. But remember like that this is based on you, your children's personalities and needs, and what is the norm anyhow. And so it could be like maybe you homeschool in the evenings, or maybe you do a 3-day on, 3-day off cycle. Maybe Wednesday is like a midweek break to you. Like it's really like up to you. And guess what? You don't have to have a designated and dedicated school area, but you can if you want. And your homeschooling doesn't have to look at anything like school at home, but it can if you want. And to the outside, you might like look like a flock of like nomadic hippie wannabe like homesteaders, but hey, if that's what you want, why not? Give yourself permission to make changes. Too often we stick at something because we feel like we can't change it. Like curriculum. I bought this curriculum. It was money by hook or by crook. We are going to use it. But you can change, make that change. If you spent money on the curriculum, like try and sell it, like recoup at least, part of it. But I do know this, that sticking with something that makes nobody happy, well, it will not help. Too often, like we can even look at that itch to make a change and view it as a failure. It is not. And I have to tell myself like that, change is not failure. Like, oh, we need to do this, and it's hard for me sometimes to make change. But we have to be open to adjusting like our homeschooling approach. And this is based on our children's progress, like feedback from them and others and how they're doing, and like really just evolving in all of their educational needs. Be together as a family. You don't want to do anything that's going to like bring disunity or like stress to your family. And you and like your partner, husband, wife, spouse, whomever, like you need to be on the same page. Involve your children in discussions about their schooling. Get them like involved in their input. For many families, homeschooling is a way to be together. So if that is a goal and, we look at all these other things, be together in how you do it. Now, can you follow a Charlotte Mason philosophy and like still have a set routine and structure? Yeah, absolutely. And can you unschool for all subjects but math and follow a curriculum for that? For sure. Like you have to do what works for you. So those are my 5 key principles. And I want to continue this on in the next video. I want to continue to look at this topic, and I have a great bunch of questions that you can look at and answer for yourself to really help you to find with these key principles to do what works for you. And thank you so much for watching today. And I hope you're looking forward to the next video. And if you want to help get these videos out, you can do that by becoming a champion. So you can check that out at patreon.com. Or don't forget to check out LearningThis.Life. This is my website. This is where I have the information in these posts, as well as other fun things like the pocket packs and my course on how to homeschool.